Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're jumping right into a massive shakeup that's happening in search. AI is no longer just some new, shiny feature. It is fundamentally rewriting the rules of the game for how we all find information online. Let's dig in. So, let me just start with a question that, might be a little terrifying for some of you. What if all that hard work, all that effort to get to that #1 spot on Google suddenly meant a whole lot less than you thought? It sounds like a big claim, but the data is really starting to show that we are in a completely new world. And here it is. This is the big one. Just a few months ago, a whopping 76% of pages cited in Google's AI overviews were also in the top 10 search results. That makes sense, right? The top results get the top billing. But today, that number has plummeted to just 38%. That's not just a drop, it's a free fall. It tells us that the old rules of visibility are changing, and fast. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll talk about what I'm calling the Great Ranking Divorce. Then we'll get into how AI is basically becoming the new homepage for search. After that, we'll try to decode Google's unwritten rules, see what Bing's very different strategy is, and then wrap it all up with a tale of two very different searches. All right, first up, the Great Ranking Divorce. This is all about the growing disconnect between that traditional high ranking and getting your content actually featured in an AI answer. They are definitely not the same thing anymore. And just to make sure we're all on the same page here, when I say AI overview, I'm talking about that summary box you now see at the very top of Google. The one that pulls info from a bunch of different sites to give you a direct answer right then and there. Now, this is where it gets really wild. Take a look at where these AI answers are actually coming from. We already saw that only 38% come from the top 10. But look at the rest of this chart. Almost two-thirds of AI citations are being pulled from pages that are buried way beyond the first page. It's pretty much an even split between pages ranking 11 to 100, and get this, pages ranking beyond 100. It's incredible. This quote from Louise Linehan over at Ahrefs really just hammers the point home. It perfectly captures how dramatic this change is. That old, cozy relationship between a top ranking and getting featured, it's pretty much over. So we know the sources are all over the map now, but just how often are these AI overviews showing up? Let's get into our next section and look at how AI is, for all intents and purposes, becoming the new homepage. Yeah, check out this number. According to research from BrightEdge, there's been a 58% year-over-year explosion in how often these AI overviews appear. They're now on almost half of all the search queries they tracked. So this isn't some side experiment. This is quickly becoming the main event. And as you can see, this isn't just a slow creep everywhere. In certain industries, it's a full-on invasion. I mean, look at education. It went from 18% of queries to a staggering 83%. B2B tech, a huge leap from 36% to 82%. If you're in one of these fields, the entire landscape has been redrawn practically overnight. And this quote from Grant Bartell sums up the new reality perfectly. The game has changed. You're not just trying to get someone to click on a blue link anymore. The new finish line is getting your content picked, summarized, and featured inside that AI answer box. That's the new prize. So that leads to the million-dollar question, right? How in the world do you optimize for this? Well, with Google, it's complicated. They haven't handed out a new rule book. Instead, we're all kind of forced to be detectives, piecing together clues from these really subtle changes they're making. For example, for years, Google told everyone to test their sites with JavaScript turned off. It was standard practice. But recently, they quietly removed that whole section, calling that advice out of date. And instead of these broad guidelines, they're adding super specific technical advice about things like canonical URLs and no index behavior. The message seems to be Google's crawler is evolving, and the technical game is getting a lot more nuanced. But, okay, while Google is leaving us this trail of breadcrumbs to follow, Microsoft is doing something completely different. Over at Bing, they've published a whole new playbook, and for once, the rules for AI search are actually in writing. This is a really big deal. Bing completely rewrote their webmaster guidelines specifically to address AI. They are telling you, loud and clear, that if you use the no archive meta tag, they won't use your content in Copilot answers. They've even added new policies to stop stuff like prompt injection. And interestingly, they've also relaxed the rules on using AI to generate content. It's all right there. So why is this so important? Because Bing is actually giving creators documented ways to control their content. When you pair that with the new AI performance dashboard they rolled out, You suddenly have both the levers to pull and the dials to watch. It's a level of control and transparency we just aren't seeing from Google right now. And that really brings us to our final takeaway. We're looking at a tale of two very different search engines, taking two very different paths into the future. It really boils down to clarity on one side and clues on the other. So let's just break it down one last time. You've got Bing's approach, which is all about clarity. They're giving us explicit rules, a dashboard to measure performance, and actual controls. Then you have Google's approach, which is more about clues. It requires us to interpret subtle changes in a much more unpredictable system. So here's the bottom line. The gap between those old school SEO tactics and this new world of AI visibility is getting wider every single day. The old rules just don't guarantee success anymore. But the good news is our understanding and the tools we have to navigate this new terrain are also getting a whole lot sharper. And that leaves me with one last question for you to think about. As we all move forward, you have to ask yourself, in this new age of AI, are you still just optimizing for the old algorithm, or are you ready to start optimizing to actually be the answer?